Hello, you beautiful souls. I'm finally back with episode number 36 of the Unleash Your Life podcast. It's been a while and it's good to sit down at the microphone and spend some time with you again. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for how you've been supporting this work by talking about it and sharing it with the people you love. So I so appreciate it. I've been on a learning curve for a while and needed some time to process and integrate all of that. But now I'm ready for a conversation, and I hope you are too. But before we do that, listen to this. This is the Unleash Your Life podcast, where you're going to learn to rewild yourself. I'm your host, Elaine Smith Brown, and I'm a best-selling author and rewilding guide. And over the last 20 years, I've been guiding women back to their truest selves. You see, you were born wild with all the wisdom you will ever need to navigate your life in a beautiful and powerful way. Then, just like everyone else on the planet, you got tamed as you fell under the power and influence of others who were also tamed. All that taming you got as a kid has you convinced you are less powerful than you really are. I call all of that unconscious programming power leaks. And on this show, you're going to discover yours and then you're going to choose to plug them so you can get back to the wild, wise, and powerful being that you are. So grab a coffee, glass of wine, or a favorite friend, or all three, and let's talk about what living your wild self can mean for you. Okay, I'm back, and I'm in my happy place. And why is it that we sometimes avoid our happy place over grasping onto things that don't feel good, but do feel familiar? Well, the short answer is because it seems easier, but what if we could change that? All right, so this is going to be a story of how I've spent a lot of time in the last little while in small picture thinking instead of big picture thinking. The cool thing in all of this is that there was obviously an awareness that I was doing this in conflict with how I want to live my life. So the universe has sent me a whole bunch of very large reminders to encourage me to get back to what I truly want. This reminder came in the form of laying me down flat on my back for a couple of weeks. But I'm not going to get too focused on that right now because I'm really excited to get back to having conversations about how we can attempt to continue on our paths of continuously waking up to areas in our life where we're still asleep, or where we have a tendency to keep falling asleep. Now, if you've been listening for a while, it's not going to come as a shock to you that I lean heavily towards being a type A personality. I'm in recovery and I've come a long way, but I came out of the womb organizing things. I have a very linear approach to life because some childhood stuff that happened created a need in me to create order. Order in my mind creates safety. And although that may be true, order also keeps us in a box. Order, or a need for order, takes you out of the miracle of how the universe actually works. The universe loves the circuitous path. It loves randomness and mystery. And that's taken some getting used to for Linear Lane. So I'm learning all kinds of new things about the online world. My need to get back into my head, getting back into a linear approach to areas of my life, came into conflict with the commitment that I had made to move myself into my heart. Now, that doesn't mean you can't be organized. It just means letting go of the controlling of how that order happens. So I got into a little battle of judging myself for not catching on to new things, mostly tech stuff, and then judging myself for pushing ahead with determination instead of allowing the time to align itself. Let's call that flow. Oh, when we're in our heads, there's no limit to the judging thoughts. You see, what you need to remember about the work that we're doing here is that enlightenment is temporary. It's fleeting. And if you get caught up in judgment that you're failing in some way because you keep repeating the same behavior over and over again, that's something you're going to have to get over. Judging yourself for any type of perceived failings just pushes all the good stuff away. Judging ourselves and others is a really, really natural thing. Well, let me say that differently. It's not natural. It is just a habit that it feels natural. We've gotten used to the feeling of being disconnected. So it doesn't actually feel good. It just feels familiar. I remember from previous podcasts, the ego likes things to stay familiar. And as you make this journey towards enlightenment or awakening, towards waking up, towards living more deeply in your heart and intuition than in your reactive egoic mind, it gets more and more clever at lulling you back to sleep, at lulling you back to old familiar ways. So my question to you today is, what if we could create something for ourselves that reminds us to continuously strive towards being the observer in our life? Do you know what I'm talking about here? These are concepts that have been taught in ancient wisdom for thousands and thousands of years from people who have had an opportunity in their lifetime to wake up to the fact that we are less human than we are fields of energy, connected to the cosmic realm, collective consciousness, the universe, or God. But not the God that's in religion. He's a little too judgy. It's not a New Age concept. We are less physical than we are metaphysical. So how do we act from the greater consciousness, this metaphysicalness? We become an observer. So this idea of being an observer in our life may start out as an exercise in imagination, but the more you practice in imagination, the more this exercise becomes reality. For me, I find that just doing this in an imaginary way immediately puts me into the reality of it because it speaks truth to me as I do it. So let's put you in a situation that is stressful or highly emotional. Something happens. Somebody threatens you. Somebody curses you out. Somebody attacks you in some way that points directly to something that you have an insecurity about. Let's get specific. Let's say you have some insecurity about the quality of your work. Now, you've not mentioned this to anyone, but it's something that you're struggling with. Perhaps you're a little over your head and you're not 100% sure that what you're doing is what is expected. Someone comes along into your space and asks how the project is going. The question isn't loaded with anything in particular. They're just asking how the project is going. But you're feeling insecure about the quality of your work, so you get defensive. And that defensiveness could come out like you start saying really negative things about your boss or whoever handed off this project to you. You might say things like they're not very clear communicator, or they keep changing their mind as to what they want, and I never know what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm frustrated that the target keeps changing, so I don't know which end is up. Remember, all they asked was, how's the project going? But all your insecurities and defenses were ignited. You're having a completely separate emotional journey than the person asking you the question. Now let's try another one. Let's say you have some insecurities about your age or your appearance or the size of your house or the size of your bank account. And you bump into someone who gives you the impression that they don't have those same insecurities. And they bring up whatever that hot topic is for you in the course of the conversation. So they might say something like, I've been going to the gym lately and I'm feeling younger than I have in ages. And in your mind, you hear, you're really letting yourself go, aren't you? Or someone says, I found a great stylist and I love how this new hair color makes me feel. And you hear, man, you need to get somebody to help you out with that hair because it's a disaster. Or someone comes into your house and you know they have a bigger house and whatever bigger and better really means. And They say, I love your space. This is really sweet. You've done some incredible things with it and it's lovely. And what you hear is, your house is dinky and small and why don't you have a better one? And then someone else at another time says that an investment is doing really, really well for them. They were just at the right place at the right time. They're not taking any credit for the decision. They're just happy that they made the decision to invest. And you hear, how stupid are you that you don't have investments? Why don't I have those kinds of investments? Why don't I have those kinds of luck? Why have I made so many bad choices in my life when it comes to money? Your whole experience in any of those types of scenarios was entirely personal and entirely in your imagination. No matter how much you think, you can be inside someone else's head and know what their intention was in making the comments that they made. You have no empirical data that you're right. So you have an emotional reaction to what could have been an incredibly passive comment. And you blame the person who made the comment instead of your monkey mind that reacted to the comment. Are you with me here? When we're drifting through our life, we become incredibly myopic. Everything is about us. Everything that is happening around us is about us. So there's traffic and you're late for work. It's personal. The universe is fucking with you and making you late. A piece of clothing that fit 3 months ago doesn't fit in the same way today. It's personal. There were fairies that went into your closet during the night and either took your clothes in or took your clothes out, but whatever it was, they are messing with your life. Someone gets a promotion at work and you don't. Or someone enters into what looks like a really wonderful relationship and that's not happening to you. You make it about you. We all do. The only difference between us is in how long we allow that reaction to last. Now, the first thing you need to know, unless you're talking to somebody who has managed to live in a state of enlightenment consistently over years and years and years, they are likely responding in their head to similar situations just like you are. One of the first things that we need to do in this process of waking up is recognize that everyone you encounter in the course of your day is operating from the vantage point of being a scared little kid. If they have not done their healing work, if they have not gone through the traumatic events in their life and made peace with those events in some way, shape, or form, standing in front of you is a lost little child. Insecure, lonely, afraid. It's not a fun vantage point. And almost everyone out there is doing everything in their power not to feel those feelings. Now let's go back to what I was saying about you reacting to questions that actually had no emotional load. Let's give the questioner or statement maker the benefit of the doubt in these scenarios and agree they were just simply saying an unloaded thing. You responded like a scared little kid. Own it. Own the fact that in that moment you reacted from your fear and insecurities. The quicker that you can own that fact, that your reaction was your monkey mind going wild, the quicker you will be able to get yourself back to a place of being able to respond from peace instead of insecurity. Every single time this happens, it is the universe answering your desire to live a more awakened life. And it's not usually fun. Who wants to be reminded of what they perceive to be their failings 100 times a day? But I want to help you reframe that idea. I completely understand what that feels like. My insecurities can get triggered 1,000 times a day. It just depends whether I'm playing the observer or am I the object. So what does it take to be the observer? Put yourself in any of the situations I mentioned earlier, or perhaps something happened today that you can put yourself in that moment. Someone said something, someone did something that made you tell yourself a story in your mind. You may have kept those thoughts to yourself, or you may have lit into the person who is standing in front of you. It doesn't matter, but remember what that moment was. Now, in your imagination, pull yourself out of your body and look at your physical being below you. What is she hearing? What was she just doing? What was she thinking as she was doing that thing? What is she feeling? Is she in the moment? Is she thinking about an impending deadline? Is she thinking about an obligation that is waiting for her at home? What's going through her mind? What would it take for you to offer that being some grace, some compassion, some level of understanding that they, in that moment, are forgetting what they are truly connected to, and they are reacting from fear and insecurity. They are just reacting as if they are a lost little kid. Just stepping out like this for a second or two, you can now actually choose to react differently. You see, in this action, you've moved from small picture thinking to big picture thinking. You are capable in this act of moving yourself out of your body and observing that being below is caught in a loop that is keeping her playing small, keeping her in a reactionary frame of mind, a defensive frame of mind. You can see that none of this has to take a really long time. In that simple act of pulling yourself out of the situation and becoming the observer of your life, you can instantaneously realize that you and the person you are talking to are on completely different journeys. And even if the person standing in front of you is taking or is talking shit to you, that they are deliberately trying to push your buttons, that they are trying to make you feel small, that they are purposefully igniting your insecurities and or feelings of stupidity, how you respond is still totally and completely up to you, and it's about you. No one can make you feel anything without your permission. Your reaction to anything and everything around you is 100% personal. This is one of the most difficult concepts to truly get, so you need to keep practicing getting it. And this is likely why we get the opportunity to practice so many times in any given day. There is a part of us that is committed to doing this work. There is a part of us that said we wanted to be more connected to our higher self. Well, how do you develop courage? You develop courage by going through situations that scare you and developing the skills to overcome your fear. How do you develop patience? You develop patience by being in situations that exasperate you, that try your patience, and you learn to stay calm in those situations. You don't develop courage if you have nothing to fear. You don't develop patience by sitting in your home, avoiding all contact of any kind. So how do you learn to wake up? You have to recognize when you're sleeping. And you recognize when you're sleeping by noticing the emotions that you're feeling. When you're feeling afraid, lost, insecure, unlovable, resentful, disappointed, confused, helpless, doubtful, in that moment, you are believing that you are just this human being, period. The scenarios that are creating those emotions in you are being sent to you as clues from the universe that in this moment, you are believing a lie about yourself. You're just getting caught up in the old drama, old habits, Old ways of thinking that will not move you forward. Your monkey mind just wants to lull you back to sleep. So I told you at the beginning that I spent a couple of weeks sick. I had asked myself just prior to this happening how I could be more in my intuition, more connected to source energy, more aware of the fact that I am connected to something infinitely larger than this human portion of me. So I asked that question, and in so doing, my desire for a greater connection to my intuition was very clear. And then I went straight back into my head and got all twisted out of shape on all kinds of things. Why was it taking so long to complete the renovation on the house? How many more weeks am I going to live without a kitchen? What did Callie mean when she came through the door and said hello? Why do the dogs defy me and act like dogs instead of like well-behaved children? Why am I so stupid that I can't catch on to a new concept I'm trying to learn? Why are thousands of people better at doing what I want to do than I am? Why does that person make computer tech stuff look so effortless when it leaves me in tears? Now, where do you think those judgments came from? Are they coming from the parts of me that are connected to the universe and all the wisdom that it contains? Or is that coming from a scared little kid? My exact request to the universe was that I wanted the volume of my intuition to be turned up. I wanted to get out of my head and into my heart. Now, the reality of my life is that I was learning all kinds of new concepts. I was also learning all kinds of technical things about building my website, delivering course material, learning to link all kinds of things together so that my students' experience would be easier and better. And I was in a state that was triggering all of my insecurities. And instead of letting that stuff go, I pushed even harder. But the universe heard my request. And so, what did she do? Well, I don't exactly know if there's a thought process of any kind that is happening on that level for my higher self, but what happened to me is I got heat exhaustion. I got heat exhaustion over 10 years ago for the first time, and apparently once you've had it, you're a little more susceptible to it. And so I've navigated it really, really well over the years. I've been really careful about being in the sun. But Callie and I went on a little trip that involved taking a ferry across a huge lake. And we had a 40-minute wait before that ferry was leaving. And there was absolutely no way I could get out of the sun. So for 40 minutes, I baked in the heat until we got moving again. The next morning, I was in the thick of heat exhaustion. For over 2 weeks, all I could do was sleep. I would sleep 8 hours at night. I would wake up, and within an hour, I had fallen asleep on the couch, and I was out for another 4 or 5 hours. I would attempt to get back to work, but the computer screen appeared to be shaking, so I couldn't comprehend anything. I couldn't read. I couldn't have a conversation. I couldn't listen to anything. There was nothing I could do to distract myself. All I could do was rest. It took me nearly 2 weeks to catch on that the universe had decided to make everything stop in my life in order for me to recognize that my whole approach for the last little while had been mostly from my head, with tiny little fleeting moments in my intuition. I had created deadlines for myself. I'd created lists. I was just going through the motions of putting one foot in front of the other. But at the same time, I wanted to be in my heart. I wanted to be in my intuition. I wanted to feel the connection to source energy and the universe and all that is available to me. But I kept trying to force the issue of the obligations that were standing in front of me. Learn how to program my site, learn how to connect different apps, learn how to do social media, learn how to fix technical issues and glitches. And the universe just took me out, laid me flat. For 2 weeks, I could accomplish nothing but accepting the fact that I needed to rest and take myself out of the fray, a universe-induced timeout. So after about a week of resistance, I gave in. My body wanted to sleep, so I slept. My body did not want to eat, so I didn't feed it. My body did not want to look at a computer, so I didn't look at a computer. My body did not want to listen to anything, read anything, so I didn't force it. I just found quiet places and I fell asleep. Now, you know from listening to other shows that I grew up in a family that attached a lot of value to work, to efficiencies, to production, to putting your head down and pushing through until you could tick that freaking box. I tell you that because I want you to understand how in conflict I was that I was being forced to do nothing. But I had asked for the volume of my intuition to get louder. And the universe said, your intuition is as loud as it's going to get. It is you that needs to learn to be quieter. Boom. That was a smack upside the head. The universe is always talking to us, but we're so busy in our monkey minds, we miss so much of it. I heard Byron Katie say this in an interview recently. When I listen to my mind, I suffer. When I question my mind, I stop suffering. So good. So the next time you feel your fears or insecurities come out, what are you going to do? Recognize this is about the stories inside your own head. Step outside yourself and observe, which has an amazingly calming effect. And then know that the stories you're telling yourself right now are not based on truth. They are just habits of thought, and you can choose to let them go. I wanted my intuition to get louder. The universe said, then stop listening to the voices in your head. And if you want to be awakened, the universe has to show you where you're still asleep. That's just the way of it. Well, I hope that was meaningful to you. I love being here. I trust this has ignited a wonderful, healthy conversation in your own mind, filled with kindness, understanding, and encouragement. Those are the voices to listen to. So until next time, stay weird, stay curious, and keep popping your corks or plugging your power leaks, whichever one sounds more fun to you. Ta for now. Well, I hope this show rocked your world a little bit. If you want additional resources, check out the links in the show notes or at lanesmithbrown.com. And before you go, please subscribe to this podcast. It's how we get these tools into the world. And this world needs more wild women standing in their authentic power. Do that for me, will ya? Thank you.